Now it's a lot easier when we actually do the dialogue or we actually do the conversations, because you are bringing something, I am bringing something, suddenly you bring something, suddenly I remember something. So it's a lot easier in that way. Light, camera, action. Is it coming? I think it is cinematically very dramatic, the light. Now this is my message to the cinematographers, the best ones. Nowadays, we don't see enough discussions regarding cinematography. We will continue to have it, because once in a while I see few discussions and I feel that again we are talking about those things, but generally there is a tendency just before the movie or after the movie we are discussing cinematography or visual arts. We are not talking about that. It is a thing we do all the time. You are all the time you are thinking about cinematography, you are thinking about the movie, you are thinking about the story. Most importantly, you are looking at light. So observing light, seeing light and remembering light. Some people talk about light memory. So before we talk about the discussions regarding light, or before we talk about light in a lucid manner or in a candid manner, what we are going to do is we are going to talk about light in a philosophical manner. A few things you should keep in mind nowadays in the contemporary situation. Few things you need to keep in mind. Let me talk about light, because light is something many people take it for granted, and it takes some time when you observe light, some people develop the light memory. I would say aesthetics, philosophy, poetry, whatever you call it, you have to go through all of it. Now it's a lot easier when we meet people, when we have the conversations which we naturally do. Suppose we are meeting fellow cinematographers, for fellow professionals, directors, cinematographers, artists. When we discuss back and forth communication, it is a lot easier, because you are bringing something, I am bringing something, and mutual respect, mutual conversation. We are talking about things. Initial stages, as I have already mentioned in the visual arts section, in the cinematography section, it's the people talk about how you are positioning the camera, how you are moving the camera, how you are choreographing and all that stuff. So by far we have already discussed the basics. So if you want to start something, I think you have something to start with, or if you really practice those things, you can really become a great professional. But I will talk about a mindset where people take things literally. Literally means, and I have to mention that because some of these people came from India, or they are carrying the name of India with them. So I feel the need even more, to talk about all these things. There are places in India visually very rich in terms of sculpture, in terms of architecture, in terms of the nature itself. So when you go to those places, when you go to nature, when you observe light, you can observe light for an entire day. You can observe light for an entire month. You can meditate on light. There are places where you can meditate on light. Soft light, bounce light, diffuse light, available light. But before I talk about the lighting setup, before I talk about the lighting arrangements, why you should go for that lighting arrangement, you will be the one to decide. I will give you few nuggets, few tips. So before we do all those things, I will mention available light. What is available light? We already have that. Now many of you are shooting it for a long time. You are going outdoors, you are shooting available light. Why do I have to mention that? The situation is like that. It was not like this few years ago, in fact 7 or 8 years ago. But the situation is like that. If you mention Claude Monet, you have to explicitly mention, then only people will come with impressionism and the light. In some instances, if you are only studying art, if you are going through art history, then obviously you are well acquainted with that. But since we have already discussed about arts, light, going outdoors, what is the reason of that movement, what was the significant difference in the movement, so we have talked about all those things. I have talked about Manet, Monet, Renoir, then your Basile and the Cezanne and all these people, and how they really wanted to make a change and how it affected painting, visual arts, photography. So we know all those things. But this is more towards the visually rich people, because they are not understanding that there are people around them, maybe because of the celeb status, they are coming, they are getting affected visually. Now, I used to be very good with photography and cinematography. If you have a camera, I can spend entire day with the camera. I don't need a single one. I don't need any other person. But if I talk about Bengal, it used to be a place for photographers. People used to come here, people used to look at people, they used to capture the photography of the nature, they used to capture the people, they used to capture the dramatic element, they used to capture the candid people, human interaction, human equation, whatever you call it, street photography, artistic photographies, those candid moments especially, people used to capture those things. Nowadays there is a tendency where people are going towards wedding photography, glossy photography only, and that is driven by few people. Now, I have already mentioned those people, so I won't go there. Rather, we will talk about the characteristics of those people and how they are affecting cinema, different components of cinema, different disciplines of cinema, and cinema as a whole, because storytelling as a whole. There is tremendous hatred towards cinematography, there is tremendous hatred towards light, there is tremendous hatred towards photography. And if you go deeper, there is a tremendous hatred towards marriage. I am not talking about the formal, this thing, formal thing, that formal event, or that things you are doing in terms of recognition in the society, things you are doing to get acceptance in the society, because that is one of the few days you can become a celebrity. Even if you are nothing, during that one day or few days, in Indian tradition it's like 3 or 4 days, or for some it's like a matter of 10 days, you can become a celebrity almost. People are giving you a lot of attention, you are dressing up, you are getting a lot of attention, people are focusing on you, so all those things are there. We are not talking about all those things. We are not talking about all those things, because marriage, if you ask me, or for many of you, you can relate to it, it is something more than a formal event. Obviously we can go for a formal event, obviously we can go for those formalities, we can invite people, we can do all those things, but it is something much more than that. And any relationship is more than something that is on the paper, something that is in an event, something much more than that. So the moment we mention the term love, the moment we mention the term marriage, it might be something very different for those people. Now, if you understand the values, if you understand the relationship, if you understand the nuances of emotions, the density, the intensity of emotions, if you understand all those things, you don't have to be this and that to marry someone. You don't have to do this and that to do this, love someone or marry someone, or all these things, especially to please the society. Why am I mentioning this when I am talking about light or when I am talking about cinematography? I think people who are veterans, people who have been in the business for a long time, you can understand. For others, I can talk about the synergy or something more than the parts combined. You understand what I am talking about. So for more visually rich people, There will be provocations for imitations. So when you are taking a decision, do it very smartly, so that you are not just imitating someone or imitating one particular style, rather the storytelling is demanding that. Because afterwards what will happen is, sometimes it may click, sometimes it may not click. I am just giving you a hint for prevention, or you can go with it, taking the responsibility, making the choice. You can choose a particular style, you can choose to have a particular color palette, or a look or aesthetic in your movie, but you have to understand why you are doing so. Is it taking the audience out of the storytelling, or it is involving them in a much better way, so that they are engrossed in that storytelling? You understand? So storytelling, is it helping the storytelling, or it is taking too much attention? Those things you need to look at. Often nowadays it will be followed by the increase in numbers, so that you get a lot of revenue and profit, so that people are not blaming you, you are having so-called success. But if you are thinking in terms of direction, creative leadership, storytelling, making a movie, making cinema, if you are talking about that, then you can think about all those things beforehand, you can think about all those points. But if you are just doing for fun and entertainment, you don't think about all these things much, then you can go with it, because the numbers will be there, maybe the revenues and the profits will be there, maybe the acceptance will be there, but you are contributing to cinema, you are telling a story. If you make one mistake, there are people who will take the advantage of you, who will take the example of you to provoke others, sometimes in front of you, sometimes behind the back. They will be taking your example, they will be giving that to others, and they will be provoking others, they will be taking others to a detour, they will be doing all those things, right? So success financially, obviously we need it. To produce a movie, we need the money. To distribute, we need the money. So many ways we need the financial aspects. But if it is taking the cinema out of it, too many exploitive things, too many things just to gather attention or for some specific purposes, if you are driven by that and you are going away from storytelling, then that can be something which can be a cautionary moment for cinema, and people will be taking your example. You might feel bad, but they will do all those things. I mean, it doesn't matter, obviously, because we keep going on, we keep moving, but some of these people are stuck in the past. They take things literally. For example, this is the thing, whatever is written, they will understand that. Since there is no poetry, there is no philosophy, so they will mention the words, they will take the words, and they will try to have their own interpretations. These are the things. Now occasionally it might feel very catchy, it might feel very creative, it might feel very, oh, that's something really different, I haven't tried it for a long time, I haven't tried it. It might feel like that, but eventually you will feel that those are like gimmicks and tricks and techniques. You take whatever you want to take from those two. Can be learning experiences, but they are only about that, certain groups of people. I will give you a few hints. For example, if you talk about the aspect ratio, academy, if I talk about the academy aspect ratio, it will be like 1.33:1. If I take the widescreen, 1.85:1, 1.65:1. Anamorphic, if I take 2.35:1. So you know these ratios. Now, as a cinematographer or as an artist, you know how they are evoking an emotional response. Why should you use those ratios? What is the need for that, Now, for some people, it might be just the number. They are playing with the numbers. 33, 35, 65, 85. They are used to play with the numbers. And I can tell you, in whatever I am doing, especially I am mentioning it in Artist 7, whatever I am doing, whatever I have done so far in my life, I have never played in a shallow way, so that I am only dealing with the numbers. 65, that means something, 30 means something, 85 means something. Okay, it might have a greater purpose, that's why I am being creative with the numbers. Can be, some ways. Sometimes it is like that, can be. but I haven't done that deliberately. So if anyone is telling you that, that's a wrong thing, because they are dealing with all these things. Again, coming back to aspect ratios, 1.33, anamorphic 2.35, widescreen 1.85, 1.65. So they are just the numbers for some people. But the moment they're listening to 33, 35, 65, 85, they're playing their games. Occasionally it might click, not all the time. You understand what I'm talking about? You have to understand anamorphic. What is the reason for using anamorphic? What is the reason for using a ratio like an academy ratio? Why you are using 4:3? Why you are using 6:9? You have to understand those things. Is the storytelling demanding that? When you are taking the shot, are you recognizing whether it is fitting the storytelling or not, or you are just doing permutations and combination? Sometimes when you are starting out, you do that. When you are figuring out things, or maybe you are going for a creative exploration, you are going through all those things. But when you know what you are doing, when you know precisely how you are going to stage it, what is the aspect ratio you are going to use, then you can take it as a creative exercise, but the choice should be yours. Not like just you are going away with it and you are hampering the storytelling for the particular cinema, for the specific cinema, for that specific movie. Not like that. You understand what I'm talking about. That's why before I talk about cinematography, these things are very important, because we are talking about artists, professionals, not just people who are playing games and gimmicks. Film is light. Federico Fellini said film is light, and you will see that this is so true. And there was a time I was, it's like I was talking to Ingmar Bergman, I was talking to Federico Fellini. There was a time, at that time, I still miss that time. Occasionally when I meet the best professionals all over the world, then we have those kind of discussions. Either we speak or we do it in another ways, but we can feel that we are going through those discussions because we have gone through the processes, we are doing these discussions. But film is light. Now for a person who has really gone through that experience, film is light, that person will jump and they will say film is actually light. Such a simple statement, but we never thought about that for a long time. Film is light. Now for people who are taking it literally, film is light, light is film, film is light, light is film, they are playing with all these things. We are not doing all these things here. And we should not do that. And in Artist 7, we are talking about deeper stuff. Right? So those things. See the light and remember it. A great exercise you can have. Now suppose if someone is afraid of silence, if someone is afraid of looking at light, if someone is afraid of observing light, that person is telling you film is light. You are not even observing light. There is no process where you are observing light. So you are not having that expertise of observing light. You are not understanding what is light supposed to do. The shadows and the lights, creating the depths, creating the dramatic intensity, creating the dramatic depth, creating the dramatic density, dramatic intensity, dramatic depth, dramatic density, whatever you call it. I mentioned the 3-dimensional thing and the 2-dimensional thing when you are having that thing. So something more than that, what is the shadow supposed to do? What is the light supposed to do? Sometimes you're using soft light in a violent movie, diffuse light in a violent movie. You're taking those creative decisions, making those creative choices. Sometimes in a romantic movie you are using the gritty texture, not just for fun or games or gimmicks. For some it might be games and gimmicks, just we want to do something opposite, that's why we are playing. Occasionally it might click, obviously it will. Sometimes you will see the combination, permutations and all these things will click. For many it can be the thing. When you are talking about Artist 7, we are discussing what? Emotional response. aesthetics, something more than that, the creative decisions, your artistic endeavor. You're making those choices, something much more than all these gimmicks. So we can look at how the light changes the visual character of the film, the color palettes, the color palettes you're choosing. I already talked about the I already talked about the styles. Cinematography, some people call themselves cinematographers, some people call themselves directors of photography. And you will see sometimes we don't take it seriously. I am really sad about it, because sometimes people don't take it seriously. But directors of photography, when somebody is telling you that, it means a lot, because those people have gone through a huge amount of experience. Now I can tell you that some people will tell me that you are thinking of the past and all these things. It is not about the past, it is about the depth and something much more than that. We are supposed to do that, and no one can persuade me otherwise. That is the reason we used to have great movies. The depth of colors, the artistic depth, whatever you call it. Some people did it with black and white, some people did it with colors, some people did it with the texture, some people did it with a mixture of all these things. Creative decisions, not only just playing things, this and that. That is the reason we respected cinema, we respected cinematography, we respected art direction, production design, and all these things. So one thing, are you taken out of the scene? Is something taking you out of the scene, or is it helping the story or the telling of the story? So, as I already mentioned, it is taking you towards the story, or it is like taking you out of the story. These discussions they are only thinking of, because some people, I can tell you, they don't want you to get involved in the storytelling too. So they will think about all those things that is actually distracting you from the storytelling, that is actually taking you out of the storytelling. So this cinematographer has a style. He is doing cinematography in such a way that is more than the story itself. He or she has a particular visual style, visual character he or she wants, or a particular visual style he or she is going to have in his or her films. It's a very unfortunate thing, in India. It's a very unfortunate thing in India. We don't teach the young talents to think about cinema in this way, to think about cinematography in this way, to think about art in this way. I mean, some people don't even know that you can learn so much from the paintings. You can learn so much from the photographs, visual references, photographs, paintings, anything you see, sculpture, works of art, art direction, production design. It's a very sad thing, because people don't know how you can take your inspirations from other works of art. We used to have that in Bengal, still we have that, and we have had that for a long time. In Bengal we have had that for a long time. Some people are after that too, but it is the people of Bengal who have to speak now, along with others. You think it's not your problem? It's the problem of art, it's the problem of humanity, so you have to speak for it. Cinema should be taken more seriously. I mean, whatever we are doing, we are taking cinema very seriously. In Artist 7 specifically, we are taking art very seriously. It's fun, obviously it is fun, it is nourishing, we are enjoying each and every bit of it, but we are taking it very seriously, especially the learning, the experience, the process. So what you see, in cinematography we say what you see and what you do not see. What you see, what you do not see, those things are important. And if you have gone through photography for a long time, if you have gone through cinematography for a long time, you will see that the choices, it's about the choices. what you see, what you don't see, and you're making the choices based on that. Yeah. So light to direct the viewer's attention, you're directing the eye. So light to direct the viewer's attention, you're doing all those things. And I already mentioned different types of light, soft light and bounce light. Then you're directing the eye of the audience. Soft light, bounce light, diffuse light, practical light. I talked about available light. You're doing all these things. When I talk about visual arts, the experience of enjoying an art or artwork or the process of an artist. So many ways you can experience that. Abstractions can teach you a lot. Abstraction can teach you a lot. When you look at paintings of Impressionism, you can look at available light, you can see the use of that. Expressionistic styles can teach you a lot about lighting, cinematography. So you're looking at light, you're observing light. Now I can go on and on. Forms that advance, forms that recede. If you look at art, you will see that forms that advance, forms that recede, and so many things, form, textures, and all these things. I talked about the dynamics of a painting. I talked about how to look at a painting and you are looking at things. Now gradually during a conversation we go to all these things. One question might evoke 10 others. One statement might evoke 10 others. So we go through those creative discussions. But if you start with disrespecting cinema, disrespecting light, disrespecting cinematography, disrespecting camera itself. Why I am saying this again and again? Because some people will talk about things in such a way, and those will be short interactions. You will think they are creative people, they know their stuff. You will give the benefit of doubt that they might know the actual thing. That's why you need to understand the play of gimmicks and games. This exists. Here we talk about things much more than that. Not those gimmicks and tricks.